Hello everybody, I'm just setting up. Hi, my name is Kathleen Peric and I'm a screenplay writer and I wrote the book American Hominin Breed. Welcome to my American Hominin Breed Ghost Tours, where we talk about rock and roll legends that have passed on, even some of them that haven't. And we'll also talk about many things in the ghost realm if we can. We're going to talk about the dark side of the world, whether it's rock and roll or whatever demons we can find that people have. And often rock and rollers do have demons, and sometimes they do pass on. So I'm also the author of Discover the Magic of Your Essence, and it's on tea leaf readings. How much more fun could that be? Coffee ground readings is an instruction book, and it has a dictionary on symbols that you can read in your coffee cup and how to do your coffee ground readings. It's the same thing with tea leaf readings. Today on our tour, on our ghastly hour, we are going to explore the rock and roll legends of the Rolling Stones, including Brian and Charlie Watts. Those two have passed on. Okay, the Rolling Stones as a group, and they were bigger than life and sassier than life. The band first performed in the Crash Daddy Club in 1962 with the band named, then it was called the Little Boy Blues Band, because they were more into blues and the guitar blues back in those days. Keith Richards had been in that band since 1962, and Charlie Watts joined the band as the drummer. He's just passed on recently in the last couple of years. Bill Wyman joined the band as bass, appeared on Shindig as a sensation. That's back in the day, the dance days when we saw it on TV. Cable didn't exist, so we saw people shindigging. The band's first pop song, Satisfaction, was released in America in 1965. In just 6 weeks, Satisfaction jumped 67 places on the Billboard charts to become the Stones' #1 single hit of all time. Mick Jagger was known as the swivel hipper, just like who else? Elvis of his day, another rock and roll king legend. So Mick Jagger, he was known as the Elvis of rock and roll, and that's of the pop themes. And as he would equally swivel his hips that were equally explicitly and sexually as Mick Jagger's. They both had their moves. The girls went wild back in the days, trust me. There are sexual overtones in their dancing, and the sexual overtones in the song Satisfaction, if you listen closely. It brought the daring presence of Jagger's dance equal to Presley's Heartbreak Hotel back in the day, of that time. The secret words between the lines of Satisfaction made the song a new pop revelation to heights, with lines such as to make some girl. Well, who says that? But if you're going to make some girl, we all know it. Wink, wink, what he meant. With this insatiable routine, hardly considered as a blues band, right? At that time. As the group came into a league of their own, no other performance could possibly match Mick Jagger's swaying hips and legs and hips, except back in the day, James Brown. And I have the sneaky suspicion that both Elvis Presley and Mick Jagger took their keys from James Brown back in the day. Mick's lip and mouth matched his performance in sync. With his hips moving around, he swiveled almost a scandalous girly sight. He had a little bit of girly overtone, and that made him sexy. With his hey, 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 that's what I say, and tossing his head back and swirling arms, brought his audience screaming for more. Mostly girls, right? The Ed Sullivan Show made the Stones a classic American debut icons back in the day. Everybody becomes an icon when they hit the Ed Sullivan Show. Brian Jones, of course, he's the one that passed on now. He was awful jealous back in the day. He had a lot of the band that he made become the world sensation. At a party, Brian lost his life. Brian's attitude for life was live fast, or life was fast, and live, die young. Die young. He had an attitude, and that attitude would prelude as a destiny that actually was a tragedy that came true. Next, the band found more tragedy. Okay, so when they gave a free concert in San Francisco, who remembers that? That was in 1969. Their audience was a crowd of thousands of all, and they were all taking acid. Back there, they called it acid rock. They were drinking wine and heroin, and it was so cold that they had built a bonfire. The first mistake was that they hired into the crowd for their guards, their security was the Hell's Henchmen, and that was a henchman motorcycle gang. The Angels, they were called, not the Hell's Henchmen, I'm so sorry, they were the, the Hell's Angels. Alrighty, Henchmen I believe is Chicago gang. So the Angels had objected to seeing a black and white couple back in the day. People were mean then, you know. They didn't want them together. So one of the Angels kept pushing the black man, and that man's name was Meredith Hunter. And Hunter objected with this fury, and he came back fighting with a gun because he was insulted. And what he did is took the gun and pointed it straight at Mick Jagger, right through the audience. He had in mind to kill him, got the pistol back. With a quick instant and with a huge jump, one of the Angels trusted himself. He took that knife, whipped it out, slung it towards Meredith. He got his jugular totally slashed, and the guy passed. At the same concert, more tragedy happened. 2 people died in a car accident, and another had drowned in a drain pipe. Mick made the comment about this. He said this to match the tragedy back then at his concert. If Jesus had been there, he would have been crucified. You know? So I guess so. It was truly the darkest night, and that would be the darkest night for the history of rock and roll. So this is why I talk about dark sides of rock and roll, the dark side story. That's what it's about. So violence went out of control for the Stones back in the day. After a litigation, and it was a lawsuit with their manager, Alan Clyde, then went to France, and they made a couple of more hits. That was Miss You, But I Miss You, and then Main Street. So the Rolling Stones did shine on. They did a movie called Shine the Light. And the Rolling Stones, they did this movie for Martin Scorsese. He was a big producer and director. So he was Academy Award winning film director. So the concert was filmed at the Beacon Theater in New York. And Ron Woods, the band's guitarist, says that the film show, it was an epic, and it showed its strengths and adventure, and it had great talent in music. Mick and Christina Aguilera, they did a duet, and that heated everything up for the film. Former President Bill and Hillary Clinton, they had an appearance there because they were popular back in the day in that film. Mick Jagger is center stage in the film. Who wouldn't be? He always is, right? And he steals the scene every time, right? Mick says that Martin Scorsese captured the magic between the Stones and the audience. Jagger says that the audience relationship with the band was superb. It was super, and it was superbly captured in the presence of the film. A little bit about Mick Jagger, his bio. Let's have a little look at you. Mick Jagger, so to speak. So in January 1989, the Rolling Stones were inducted into the Hall of Fame, but not before the road to rockdom took a jagged edge, and it took a tour away from them, just like this is a dark tour, so it took a tour for them. It took them a while to get there, but they went through hell and back, basically. So today, we are going to discuss the rock profile of the rock legends in history and profile of the rock band Mick Jagger. Okay, so his name, birth name, and I never knew this before, was Michael Philip Jagger. That was his original birth name. He came to America by storm on a British invasion back in the day when the Beatles here, all of them were here. That was the psychedelic days of the British invasion in the 60s. He grew up in a seemingly endless time warp. His number one manager then was Andrew Oldham. And his manager Andrew transformed him from a shy, timid Mike, I can't imagine that, to an outstanding performer. And what a performer. Drug charges in 1967 caused his imprisonment. He started originally as an economics student. I can't imagine that either. For climate change, I guess. Economics, I don't know. Wow, I can't imagine that. Originally, he spent his boyhood years in Wentworth County, England. Hyde Park Concert was an unpublicized heroic role at the Almost Festival that he did poetry in. His history of beautiful women, which he had many women, had brought his legacy to incredible heights. These beautiful women included Chrissy Shrimpton, Marianne Faithfull, to Jerry Hill. Keith Richards was also known as the Glitter Brother. He was a great songwriter of his songs such as Sympathy for the Devil. Isn't that? I remember that song. Pleased to meet you. The truly epic, legendary pop song. I mean, they had that song for preludes with movies and stuff. Mick Jagger helped inspire his band, the Rolling Stones, to become the world's greatest rock and roll band of all time, of this century. Mick earned his name among the greatest pop rock stars ever. And those names would be such legendary names as John Lennon, Buddy Holly, the Beatles, Elton John, Elvis Presley, Madonna, Paul McCartney, to name a few. There is a new book out on the Mick Jagger story called The Wild Light, the Man Genius of Mick Jagger. And that author is named Christopher Anderson. And now we'll go into the dark side of Brian Jones. He died of a tragedy. The tragedy happened in his home in a pond at a party in 1969. He had a bad temper, Brian Jones. He had 34 illegitimate kids from different women. I can't imagine him being that busy of a boy. 34. He must have been doing 3 women at a time. Because he was young when he died, right? 34 illegitimate kids from different women. Originally had a cocky attitude. Oh yeah, I'm sure he was cocky. 34 women. Remember to like and subscribe. And I forgot to tell you that. Well, I'm telling it to you now. Because I need to build if you like what I say. And I like to see you in my comments too. And tell me what you feel about the Rolling Stones, the icons. Originally the leader of the Rolling Stones. So he started out actually, and he was so jealous. So jealous. I believe he got depressed. And that's why he got really heavy on drugs. Originally, he was the leader of Rolling Stones. He started in Montreal before the United States, and as the group, he had started with a North American tour. So they came to America to tour it, just like I have a ghost tour going on here of the dark side. As a group had gone to have good times, they all went to Paris. to have good times. So Brian was responsible for the group's looks. I can't imagine with a little bit of frill that Mick Jagger had, that Brian was responsible for the looks, but I can imagine it. And he was responsible for their attitude. Well, Mick Jagger was a little bit, you know what. Okay, so with his swivel hips. So, and that's what stole the scene. Originally, Brian played the piano, clarinet, and guitar. His mother was a music teacher. He liked jazz music and did a little as possible in his young life. I can imagine he was busy having 34 illegitimate children. He got a 14-year-old girl pregnant, then 2 more older ones, and had encountered lawsuits. Wow, because of these. He was jealous and was prone to outbursts of anger. Okay, so let me see. His first group, this would be Brian, that he started, was actually called the Ramrods and the Chartones. I can imagine him being a Ramrod with 34 kids. Alrighty. So he loved jazz bars and blues bands. Brian started with his first blues band performance in the town hall with the first white blues band in the world. He didn't want to be an artist. It was his first meeting for the blues band, is where he met up with Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. And that's when he got together to decide on a rhythm and blues band. So Brian Jones is responsible for starting the Rolling Stones. Brian first started the Rolling Stones band as a rhythm and blues band. Brian lived through a short adventure life, but it was adventurous. But he started getting depressed and he was heavy on drugs at the end of the day, and they took a toll on his life. He was beat, and he didn't like to be behind the scenes. He was pushed aside. So his life began in 1963 and he died in 1965. He was eventually replaced by Mick Jagger. Brian liked poems and he did Dream of Life at that time in the park. That's, I guess, a poem that he did. The group founder was actually Brian Jones. He was a brilliant guitar player and he was the edgy member. Brian Jones originated the whole 60s look of the band, including the clothes. Brian never had a hit record under his own name, never sang a lead vocal or published his own music, but he originated that band and style of that era. Yet, he gave the Stone name their direction and image. He was still the top performer, it's just that he got brushed aside and his life whittled away. Yet, it was at midnight one night that they found Brian's body at the bottom of a pool. The news of Brian's death had shocked everyone. It shocked the world. Brian died